Welcome, my name's Chris, and this week I have a guided quiz for anyone wanting to get better at hearing chords by ear. I've been talking about this a lot on this channel, and I will link some relevant videos below if you're brand new to this. I've got a video talking about my emotional experience hearing all these chords behind me, the ones from the major scale, the numbered ones here. And I also have videos showing you how I play these chords on guitar. Today I'll be playing audio examples for you on guitar and focusing on these chords one level at a time. Level 1 is just the 1 and the 6 chord. Level 2, I'll add the 5 chord. Level 3 will focus on 1, 4, and 5. And level 4, if we get to it today, will be primary chords, which are 1, 4, 5, and 6 altogether. You could use an instrument here to practice along if you want, but I'm trying to make this quiz possible for you to do anywhere. And I actually recommend doing it away from an instrument. You can practice some of these tools I have behind me. These are the ways we can actually work on this in our day-to-day life, using our voice, practicing hearing the bass, practicing singing scales. There's a lot that go into this. Plus, you can also practice hearing these chord shapes on the guitar, but it's more about hearing the color and the emotion of these chords. There's one more thing you need to know before we begin the audio examples, and that is how to chart at a basic level. Many of you will be familiar with a chord chart, which has lyrics and chords listed. But for these purposes, you just want to be able to kind of keep track of what chord is happening where. So here's an example chart. This is something I would make for if I had to learn a song like Hey Jude, which I already know this song. But this represents the harmony. These are 4 beats each. If you have quicker chords, it would be 2 beats each. You would underline them, right? So you'd have 1 and 5 together underlined. That'd be 1 measure total. The little dot here just helps us keep track of how many measures we've been playing. This is how I make a chart. There are many ways to do it. This is called Nashville number sometimes. I think for many musicians, especially as you get better and as you're learning more, number charts are a really good way to think about harmony and to think about the grid happening behind the music and to use the beats to our full advantage. I would typically make a chart that looks like this. I could chart the whole tune out, and I could also put the form of it, putting down how many times we repeat things, where we jump to. These kinds of charts are extremely clear ways to communicate the beats and the harmony in any key. I think it will be a good way for you to practice and orient as we're doing these audio examples and as you practice this in your everyday life. Before we begin the audio examples, here's a brief overview of the 1 and the 6 chord. The 1 chord is our typical home chord. I'll play it in a few different keys here. If I just had a song start off like this, what I'm trying to do is latch on to the bass. If I can hear that, if I can hear this, and that feeling of home. That's my first tip here, is to find home, use the bass, use a scale, right? So we need to get some scale muscle memory in our head to be able to feel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to hear the major, and these will all be in major today, or to hear the minor home feel. Right, this feeling of just this is our character, right? We're trying to learn it. Finding 1 is a critical skill that you're going to have to build on, and you're going to have to do it in every example here. A few more examples of the 1 chord just alone. If I just hear something like this, right? I'm trying to hear 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That could be a minor or a major, right? Because that's just like a power chord. What if I heard, and that's our 1. 1. Right? And I'm going to orient to that and make everything go back to that until we have new information. The 6th chord is pretty similar to 1. It's the main minor chord in a key, and it's usually the protagonist if 1 is not. So that might sound like this, where I have a song start here. And let's say it brightens up into here. Right? And some songs will be based around a minor chord. Again, we're not doing that today. We're focusing on the main feeling of this feeling of okayness here, right? Melancholy, kind of okay, resigned, kind of sad, but wants to stay home, right? Going to 1, because the first level is just going to have 1 and 6. Here's some audio examples, and let's see how you do with level 1. Hopefully you had a sense of 1 or 6 chord, right? We're trying to hear the brightness of the 1 if it's major, and in these cases it will be, and the kind of minor feeling of the 6. And I was trying to play a few different ways so you can kind of hear the different ways these can sound in real life. Sometimes you don't have much to go on, right? It might just be even one note. Hearing the bass movement is really, really good. Often you'll hear them connect 1 going down to 6, because remember, after 1, below 1 is 7. So if we have like 1 here, like 1, 7, 6, right? So you often hear them go down like that. You might also hear it go up. And if you can hear the scale all the way 1 to 6 going ascending, that's really good as well. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to hear that kind of thing. So you might hear it a few different ways. I think the feeling is the main thing between these 2 chords to really key into, because I think that will make it really obvious that you're hearing the 1 chord at the very beginning of the song, or you're hearing a minor 6. In level 2, we're going to add the 5 chord to the possible options. So now we'll have either the 1, 5, or 6. The 6 chord being minor, I hope will still be easy to hear. And the difference between 1 and 5 is that 1 represents the most resolved feeling we can have, right? So if we're on the key of C, there's a good 1 chord. And a 5 represents kind of the opposite. It's like the most tension you can have. And there are some chords like maybe the 7 diminished chord, if you were to play like a full diminished, that really wants to resolve as well. And that's kind of related to 5. They have a lot of notes in common. In the case of C being 1, G would be 5. And just playing that alone, hopefully we can kind of hear that unresolved nature if you're focusing on this being home. How to make this sound like home would be to like play it long enough alone, where we really take it as the 1 chord. You can also play in the scale, or sing in the scale, and it really makes it sound like home, right? And then this sounds like going away. If you add the 7 to the 5, even more so, right? So that's the color we're trying to differentiate from 1. So here's our resolved, far away, our tension, our 5, back home, right? Everything wants to go resolve. This ultimate tension wants to resolve to our home. Now here's a few other keys. How about this? Some version of that. If you get into the bass motion of going like 1, 7, 6, 5, walking down again like we did 1 to 6. Or you could go 1, 5, Star Wars. If you can hear that, 1, 5. Right? The very assertive, very bright chord wants to go somewhere. To here, to the 4, or maybe to the 6. Right? Which is interesting. Kind of finds resolution, but we're sad now. Or classically 5 to 1, which is like the most common chord progression in music, really. 1, 5, 1. Overall, listen for tension and resolution and figure out what chord is resolved. If you're starting out resolved, if you become resolved, if you start with a minor feel, all those things, any kind of intuition we can get going is really, really good. It all kind of combines here where you can really start to feel a chord progression pretty quickly. Here's level 2 audio examples, 1, 5, and 6. I'm not going to necessarily play all 3 chords in every example, so listen out for only 2 chords in the progression and try to hone in on the feeling of each one. Level 3, we're going to be covering the 1, 4, and 5 chord together. These 3 chords are really important and they go together a lot. They're often called primary chords. I usually call primary chords these days, though, 1, 4, 5, and 6 together, just because of their prominence in modern music. As a working musician, I guess I've just formulated those chords should be expected a lot, and they're really good to have on mental speed dial. For 1, 4, and 5, those kind of represent every function we need in music. The tonic function of the 1 chord, the home chord, the 4 chord being a subdominant chord, meaning it kind of is a chord that precedes the dominant, which is 5. They kind of work in concert together. The 4 chord I call the plot chord. It kind of takes us away. It'll be harder here with 3 major chords to tell the chords apart in some ways. But if we have a really good sense of 1 and we continue to strengthen that, also turn up the differences between 4 and 5. And this really opens up a huge door when you have 1, 4, and 5 in your ears as well as your fingers if you play an instrument, because then you can play lots of songs. Someone can be like, hey, do you know that song like Africa? That was in my head today earlier. And I don't ever play that song, but I could play the song, the chorus. I could play the chords and my ears telling me what to play. And I think you get through the whole song. Well, this song's kind of tricky. It goes to a few different keys. I've taught it a few times, but I don't have the chords memorized. Like this part goes, we go to another key, something like that. So it's really automatic eventually, and your ear will just really work for you if you have these primary chords really nailed down in different keys that you play in. And that could just be the key of G, right? G, C, D, that's where it starts. And then before you know it, you can really do this in many different keys. So let's just jump in now with some examples so you can get some practice telling these 3 chords apart. As far as telling the difference between 4 and 5, I would lean into the way 5 wants to resolve, and I hear more 4 as being comfortable with going out. So imagine if this is 1, 4 is kind of going out, gives us somewhere to go, but it's so comforting, right, to me. Like 4 to 1, right, that kind of amen. There's something about it that's really inviting and kind of welcoming. 5 to 1 is a little bit more dramatic. So when I go 1, 5, and I have to resolve, right, this is a little bit more on the nose, while this is a little bit more open to other things, right? So whatever helps you here, kind of think about these chords. That's the goal, and to feel them like however you feel them. So that's kind of what I'm feeling, is like a chord that's a little bit more open to go outside, open to also go home. It's a little bit more charitable than this one, which kind of needs to be resolved. It's kind of like my child when they need something, they gotta have it done. Here's some other examples. So if I go like 1, 5, 1, very basic chord progression, right? It's kind of like the least amount of events you can have in a song is 1 to 5, and it's the most on the nose. Might totally be what you need. In fact, 1 and 5, you can kind of boil down many songs to. That's the main on chord, our 1 or our 6, right? And our 5 is our main off. And our in between, like a 4, kind of can serve for other things. It elongates the story. Here's some other examples. Let's go to key G now. So if this is 1, imagine a song just like 1 and 4. Really good example of this is actually a tune called Cigarettes by this guy Noah Gundersen. I'll link his stuff below. This song goes between this and this. Kind of this G to G sus, which is kind of like a C. So it's like a 4 chord. But that's 1, right? So the whole song is kind of like that, kind of dancing between those 2 chords. Isn't it beautiful? It's kind of like live there all day long. And then for the bridge, this is what happens. Goes to the 2, which we haven't covered yet, and then the 5. And that 5 kind of really breaks it up, right? So it gives us a new emotion, a new feeling and color. It will really also be at the end of many phrases to get back to 1. Really depends on the genre of music. It is kind of on the nose, so you don't always hear it. And you might hear it in other contexts, like a jazzier 2-5-1 progression. All this like lo-fi stuff that's really popular. Right, that's still a 1, just a little bit more dissonant. And maybe even extra dissonant, or got some like, weird notes in it. Right. Jazz, you can break all the rules. This concept can definitely be flexible, but really hearing 1, 4, and 5 in any genre of music is so important. They're really your most important landmarks. Of course, 1, we orient everything to that. And then 4 and 5, you just need to know your instrument. That's something I was going to put here, input and output. So, or you get input from songs, right? But also you can give yourself input, and you can output this understanding of practicing chords in groups like 1, 4, and 5. Like learn, if you're a beginner, G, C, and D, or C, F, G, whatever. And no matter what instrument you play, this is a good idea. And your job as a musician over time, if you want to be musically more and more available, is to study this stuff, slowly acquire this language to where you know what these chords are in one key, and you can start to think about them very easily, and you don't have to look at your hands. That way you can go through with a song by ear and have these chords at the ready to audition them and see if they're the right chord. And this is a skill that you just get better and better at with practice, I promise you. Getting your voice involved with 1, 4, and 5 should really help too. You can think about 1 to 4 going ascending very easily. And that's actually because it's also 5 to 1 and the 4's key. If C's 1, F's 4, C's 5 of F being 1, right? So that's kind of the weird overlapping relationship there is here. That means though, for the voice, going up to 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4, like Lean on Me, right? That's really good to remember. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you can go down here, like Johnny Cash would, like 1, 7, 6, 5, 5, 7, 6, 1, or 5, 6, 7, 1, That's maybe helpful to go up to the 4. And then once you're at the 4, you can also find 5 just going a whole step up. This is how I Want to Hold Your Hand starts. It goes like 4, 5, 4, 5, tension, and gets resolved. And then we have chords. Be listening for this tension and resolution. Try to hear 1 and then try to find 4 and 5 from that. And again, you can do this with no instrument. That's what it takes. It takes practice with and without an instrument. If you hear some music, wherever you're at, try to figure it out. Like I was doing this earlier and I heard random music and I was thinking about the methods I'm teaching here and how to practice those with this music that I know how to hear, but I'm practicing all the time and I'm in this mode of just like, can I understand what music I'm hearing without an instrument? Can I do it with no guitar or no piano? So, of course, this is also a good way to pair learning an instrument and learning chords. I wouldn't neglect that. You can use the chords here if you can get these like this and be able to play all these very easily. Then you can have them as ammunition to figure out songs by ear, just to kind of make this part easier and more automatic, offloading it from your brain so that way you can focus on other things. So I will leave you at that today. I've done this a long time and I have a lot of editing to do to make all this work, but hopefully it will be worth it. If you find this channel helpful, please like and subscribe. I'll be back next time with a part 2 for this video. We'll cover the 2 and the 3 chords, and I will show you how to continue to practice this. This just goes on deeper and deeper with the more music you listen to and the more finesse you can get with your ear. And it really is a worthwhile journey. So I applaud you for going on it because it's a new sense you can get about the world, a new intuition. And that is a beautiful thing. And you start to really appreciate music even deeper. If there are questions you have about this method or anything that you found that has worked, please let me know in the comments, and happy practicing. I'll see you next time.